What's up, everyone? This is Content Corner, where I'm going to review shows, movies, JM content, TikToks I see, and other random things that pique my interest involving content. First up, we're going to talk about this new Apple TV show, Lessons in Chemistry. Now, this is a book, and they are obviously remaking it into a show. I don't know much about it. When there are shows like this, I try not to read too much because I enjoy just finding out the story as I'm watching it. I did that with Daisy Jones and the Six. I had read the book, and so I had such high expectations for the show. And even though the show was phenomenal, I was like let down on certain things because I viewed it a certain way when I was reading it. The book. If there's a book, I try to avoid it whenever I watch the show first, and then I will go back and read the book afterwards if I want. Bri Larson is the main character, Elizabeth. We are 3 episodes in, and I'm obsessed. I watched the 3rd episode last night, and I'm going to break down each and every episode and tell you what I liked and what I didn't like. So this is essentially a story that is about a female chemist that becomes a popular chef with her own TV show, I'm presuming. First episode is essentially, it starts in present time, which is her cooking show and all of her fans and all of that. Her character is giving off the impression that she is very jaded and that she has gone through a lot. Instantly gives you that vibe. It rewinds back to when she started after she had graduated college to be a chemist. She tried to go get her PhD, and then some things happened apparently that steered her away from going and getting her PhD. She's very brilliant, and you can tell that quickly, but it's also very apparent that the male counterparts in this show, especially in episode 1, view her as just another woman in the workforce. It's based, I believe, in like the 1950s, 60s, maybe, something like that. I don't know exactly. I should probably know that. But it also starts with them wanting to like force her into this pageant because they want to do a Little Miss Hastings pageant, which is all of essentially the secretaries that go up there and do it for all of the scientists' men, which if you think about it is like really gross and disgusting. She is instantly shown staying late and working on some sort of research or project in secret. She ends up having to take some of this material from another scientist's room. That scientist has already been portrayed as standoffish, weird, quirky. No one likes him. No one talks to him. But apparently he's brilliant and like has won all of these awards and all of this and whatnot, blah, 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 whatever. So that dude, his name is Calvin. And apparently Calvin has these like really weird allergy sensitivities. So he's like kind of a prima donna and like no one likes him. They're like, oh, don't look him in the eyes. But like Elizabeth's like, I don't care. And Calvin comes to Elizabeth and is like, how dare you take my material, blah, blah, blah. Like, I can't believe you did that. When he approached her, was like, you are just a secretary. And she's like, I'm not just a secretary. But then Calvin finds out he was kind of being a dick. And then Elizabeth has to perform at this Little Miss Hastings pageant and whatever. And so then Calvin gets really sick because he smells this like lady's apparently really bad perfume. So that is where the romance blooms because Elizabeth takes Calvin home and is really nice. And then the next day, Calvin comes and sits with Elizabeth at lunch. And then he finds out that every single night, Elizabeth goes home and is working on these science experiments. But these science experiments are like really beautiful food dishes. Like if I'm a scientist and I'm a dude and I see a woman doing that, I'm like, can we get married? Right? And you can instantly see that in his eyes. So episode 2 is essentially their budding romance, I guess we can say. Elizabeth ends up finding a dog that she saves, names him 6:30 because 6:30 is whenever the dog wakes her up to go to the bathroom in the morning. I like how we are gradually seeing Elizabeth's character, which came off so hard and emotionless. We see her slowly but surely being humanized. And Calvin is the same way. They're both humanizing each other. And so Elizabeth moves in. We think that there's this whole like perfect relationship. They basically said, screw you to the Hastings board because Elizabeth's name couldn't be put on the research they were doing together because she's not technically a doctor. Come to find out she didn't get her PhD because one of the advisors tried to rape her. Or come to find out, she didn't get her PhD because one of the advisors actually sexually assaulted her. That's dark. She also says she doesn't want kids and she doesn't want to be married. And that comes back in episode 3, which we'll get to. But End of episode 2, we're thinking, oh, everyone's happy and whatnot. Calvin's going on his normal run, which apparently back then, like, running for exercise, like, wasn't a thing, which is weird all on its own. Calvin's running with the dog, 6:30, and they're like, oh, yeah, woo. And then the dog's like, no, don't go. Wait, don't go. Boom. Calvin gets hit by a bus. Out of nowhere, Calvin gets hit by a bus. That's how episode 2 ends. So my heart was full, and then my heart was shattered. And then episode 3 starts with my heart being continuously shattered because, one, weirdly, it's narrated by a dog, and every time something's narrated by a dog, I instantly am taken back to the movie Marley and Me, and it ruins my life because when I hear a dog sad or see a dog sad, I'm gonna cry. And I did. I wasn't expecting that. We'll get to my thoughts after. She finds out she's pregnant. Oh, and she also finds out that Calvin had a ring for her, which that destroyed me. Basically, all of episode 3 is essentially Elizabeth, Bri Larson's character, dealing with emotions in a very emotionless way. She tries to just go back to work. She tries to just go with the motions. You don't ever see her break. You don't ever see her lose it. She has anger in her, and that's very obvious. But outside of that, she's just like this. There's an interesting scene in a conference room type of thing at work, essentially stating that they are going to fire her because she's pregnant. She then goes on this entire monologue of like explaining pregnancy to this doofus of a dude and is basically like 50% a man's fault and 50% a woman's fault. So if a man got a girl pregnant outside of marriage, then would the man get fired? And he was like, well, no. Then she was like, okay, well, then there's no grounds to fire me because they were trying to fire her because she was pregnant. And then he was basically like, it's an unwritten rule in company policy. It's just a bad look. You should be ashamed of yourself. Blah, blah. Her friendship starts to blossom with Harriet, who lives across the street, which was one of Calvin's really close friends, which is so sweet. And yeah, you kind of just see Bri Larson become a badass woman. She starts becoming like a mom. The dog continues to narrate it, and it ends of them like running on the street in a very Rocky kind of way. Few thoughts. Great show. I think it's very interestingly done. I really like the story. I think that there are particular producing choices that I'm intrigued about. Like having a dog narrate such a serious show is an interesting choice. It felt very Disney Channel-esque type of move, but it worked in the moment. I hope the dog doesn't continue narrating things because I think then that's going to get weird and it's going to lose its like depth. But it was a nice lighthearted touch, right? I think Dr. Robert Donati, guy who runs Hastings, he's a dick. I hate him. I have a feeling what's going to happen is she's going to be like, screw this. I'm going to go be a superstar and somehow become a chef on TV. I don't know how we're going to get to that, but so far I'm very intrigued by this show. I love it. I highly recommend it. Watch along with me. I'm going to keep updating this because that's the show I'm watching. I'm also watching The Morning Show, but we're 3 seasons in on that, and I feel like I'm in real deep to talk about all of that. One last thing I want to touch on is a very interesting TikTok that I found. So I found a very interesting TikTok that involves Taylor Swift. And no, it's not about Travis Kelce. And no, it's not about the Eras Tour movie. It's about her possibly being in another movie. And I think right now it's just a conspiracy. But it goes back to whenever Taylor Swift was in New York watching the Chiefs game. And she showed up with Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. And there was like a few other people, right? Most of the time you wouldn't think anything like out of the ordinary because Taylor and Blake are friends. But I saw this TikTok 3 days ago, and I was like, that is an interesting thought. So to all my Marvel fans, listen up. Deadpool 3 involves Ryan Reynolds. And also, I believe, is it Hugh Jackson? I don't know. You know who I'm talking about, Wolverine. They are part of the Marvel family. The interesting character that was also in the box with them at that football game is the director for Deadpool 3. So if you zoom out and you start thinking about it and you want to start picking up on some Easter eggs that Taylor Swift notoriously drops left and right, Marvel has a character named Dazzler. Dazzler is essentially a pop star during the day and saves the world at night. It's very Hannah Montana-esque, but like not. What if Dazzler is somehow brought into Deadpool 3 as a small character, it pops off, people lose it, and then there's a standalone movie for Dazzler, and Taylor Swift has her own original Marvel movie, writes all of the music, and is like blowing up even more than we could ever imagine. Think about that. Think about it. Shout out to the original creator who did that TikTok. I can't find their actual handle, but that's an interesting conspiracy. And Taylor Swift fans are probably losing their shit over that. But Marvel fans are also pretty feral when it comes to new characters being involved in this franchise. So I don't know. Something to watch out for. But that's all I got on Content Corner. Let me know if there's any other cool shows I should be watching. But I'm going to keep up to date with this Lessons in Chemistry one because I am intrigued. Bye.